Welcome. How's everybody doing today? I am Tyree. Nice to meet you. I am the Associate Curator of Western History at the Autry, and I am at my home. Oh my gosh, the questions are coming so fast. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for the Autry's first installment of Office Hours. What is Office Hours? The Autry and I, particularly the curatorial team, were throwing around some ideas in the midst of quarantine. And we were thinking about ways in which to engage our audience, which is you, and how we could bring the Archie to you all today. And so as we were throwing around some ideas, we saw definitely the proliferation of those who were jumping on Instagram Live. And the thought came to us all, why don't we bring the Archie to you? And therein lied the birth of Autry Hours. And this is just one iteration of the many things we want to bring you all over the course of several quarantine weeks. And we are excited that you all are joining with us today, and we hope that you guys will join our news e-blast. And if you need to do so, you can subscribe at theautry.com. And so today you're just talking to a curator. We want to give you guys a little bit of time behind the veil to hear from you about what your questions are for a curator. And we want to hear what you would all have to say. Let me see if I can turn questions on. Oh, and the questions are already coming. How is the Autry handling? Okay, well, let me give you guys a little bit more background on who I am. So I recently joined the Autry from the California African American Museum. And while there, I was the curator and program manager for history. And I did several acclaimed, the Autry.org, thank you. I did several acclaimed exhibitions that kind of surfaced around the African American experience in the West. And in doing so, we were able to share and highlight some of the nuances about American history in the West. I recently joined the Autry in January of this year, and I've been having a ball. So that's a little bit of background on who I am. And let's take some of your questions. How is the Autry? Okay, I think I'm taking. Oh, okay. How long? So the first question we have for office hours for me is, how long does it take to plan an exhibit? Well, when you're a museum curator, you're always thinking about new exhibitions. And when you're thinking about new exhibitions, you want to make sure that the exhibition and its ideas will be fresh and new, and that can really retain the interest of those who will come maybe 1 to 2 to 3 years in advance. At the Autry in particular, we plan our exhibitions 3 to 5 years in advance, and we're always working on them come rain, sleet, or snow, quarantine or not. And even at this time, we are curating exhibitions for subsequent years. Thank you, Sacred Village Arts. That was a good question. Let me take another one. How is the Autry handling COVID-19? That's a great question. It's Linsby. The Autry is handling COVID-19 with much professionalism and with much diligence. We realize that the content and what we bring to our audience is so valuable. And we know that even in light of what's going on, we want to handle this with delicately and with care. So even as we speak, the Autry has been even giving medical supplies in donations to support those who are on the ground as essential workers. And we are in high support of everything that's going on. And Autry is still open in relationship to our digital content. So we hope that you guys will engage with us just like you are doing today with Office Hours. Thank you, it's Linsby. We got another question. Let's see. Oh, they're coming in fast. What exhibitions are you currently working on? What exhibitions are we currently working on? We're working on a few. One in particular is dress codes. This is an exhibition that surveys the ways in which fashion and Western American history have converged. And that was expected to open up in this May, but naturally it's been delayed. And so expect more information about its opening soon. Thank you. It's S. Michelle. Let's see. Bum. Thank you all for joining me. This is so cool. This is happening really fast. What experiences from past jobs help you do your job now? Well, being a curator, you bring in not only the experiences that you've had from past jobs, but you're bringing in new and fresh ideas. And so, in light of what's going on, I bring a particular lens and also a particular lens from a particular community, being the African American lens that comes out of the West. And so, I'm excited about using American Western history to apply a certain lens about how we can all truly see what it means to be an American citizen more fully for various communities, even for those who have been omitted. So that's my particular expertise, but more fully, I have my research delves into various communities, such as Indigenous communities and the like. What experience is? Thank you for that question, Mate Peterson. Let me take some more. Wow, you guys are fast. Thank you. How do you envision curating? Yeah. So we have a question from Hasef. How do you envision curating Black history at this museum? I think it's kind of cut off. Well, African American history is American history. And so bringing in African American history into the Autry is actually very easy, because a lot of people don't know that our collections are very robust and reflect so many various communities. So even in our archives, we have so many pieces in our collection that reflect that particular community, and I'm excited to bring them into the fold and for future exhibitions. Many that I want to talk about right now, but I'm excited to share that they're on their way. So stay tuned. Thank you for that question, Hasef. Let's see. Oh, this is a good question. Would it be possible for someone, maybe yourself, can do a live tour through the Autry? Well, thank you for that question, Lightning Strikes. That's due to the nature of COVID-19, we are unable to go into the Autry and provide that tour as curators. However, we plan on bringing you in-depth content about our exhibitions, particularly Masters, which is on view right now. So stay tuned and you'll hear more information via our eBlast and other channels like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Thank you, Lightning Strikes. I guess I'm gonna give a few shout outs to who's in the chat, because you guys are so diligent. Mate Peterson is here. Can I have Malibu, famous director? Thank you for joining. Skiddaby, thank you for the hard eyes. Josh is a Western. Thank you, Josh. I know who that is. Trenton, thank you. Hey, KCRW. We love you, KCRW. Will affect museums. Toya from Harlem. Hey, you. I'll get to your question in 1 second. Janiyah Jones. Thank you, Janiyah, for joining. Just want to give a few shout outs. Okay, so I have a question. Tell us more about the collaboration. Well, these are good. Tell us more about the collaboration for Poetry Night. Was really exciting. Hey, Kale. Tell us more about the collaboration for the Poetry Night. We're really excited to bring you all fresh voices who are able to speak directly about what's going on, but through a poetic lens. All of that information can be found within our news blast that came out this week, as well as online, and you don't want to miss it. I guarantee it. I'll be tuning in, and I hope you will too. Thank you, King Life. Let me take some questions from the chat. Let's see. Could you tell? Oh, Chris is out. Cool. Thanks, Chris. Okay, let me get Toya's question. So how do you think COVID-19 will affect museums and how we look at art? And how do you think it will affect how you will curate in 2020? Wow, that's a great question, Toya. I think the ways in which COVID-19 has made many museums reimagine our content is something that will be felt for years to come. And I'm excited to be at the Archie because I think we are innovatively thinking about how to bring the museum outside of the four walls to you all more accessibly. Because really at the end of the day, how do you see exhibitions? How do you engage in programming? How do you want this all to unfold for the viewer and the patron is something that we're diligently thinking about. And I think in the same breath, we want to not compromise the value that it means to come into museums after all quarantine is over. But what does it look like to bring exhibitions and programming and the Autry to you on a regular basis? I think we're going to be doing that through digital content, through virtual tours, through accessibility to our resource center that's soon to open. And we hope that you'll stick around for that journey and know that we have a very vigilant staff who is on the front lines trying to bring this content to you all. So thank you, Toya. That was a good question. Do you have any Chicano history exhibits coming up soon as a follow-up to La Raza, Cindy 2021? Cindy, that's a really good question. Yes, we do. We are currently working on a few partnerships, and we're working on a few partnerships with that dealt with the Chicano experience, particularly in Los Angeles. But due to COVID-19, many of those projects have been on pause. But please stay tuned about updates about those projects. Stay tuned. Chris DeZalo. Hey, Chris. Could you tell the story of the first exhibition you ever curated, how it came together, what emotions, experience, and what you learned? Yes. So the first exhibition I ever curated was entitled No Justice, No Peace, LA 1992 at the California African American Museum. And it was a historical survey of the Los Angeles uprisings in 1992 and how they connected from 1992 to the Watts Rebellion in 1965 to the Zoot Suit riots in the 1930s. And it was an amazing experience that was exhilarating, but it was one that I knew I could not do alone. So collaborating with my team, we went to the highways and byways to find communities that were impacted by all of those uprisings to therefore source objects. And we sure enough did. We included various partners such as the Harlan's family, the Korean community, the African-American community, and even law enforcement, which we viewed as a community. And we were able to source these objects and put on this exhibition in 2017. And it was one of the best things and exhibitions I could have ever produced. So I'm so glad to be a part of that and looking forward to doing even more great work here at the Autry. Thank you, Chris. Let's take some more questions. Amazing question, Toya. Oh yeah, thanks, Toya. Thanks for this live post. Of course, we want to bring this content to you. People did not come to play with these questions. I know, I can tell. What about the Armenian experience? Absolutely. We can't not forget about the Armenian experience, particularly here in Los Angeles and in California. And so we're currently thinking through exhibitions to include those inroads here at the Autry, and it's something that I'm very adamant about. All right, let me jump back into the questions. Okay, so what we got? What's been a favorite exhibition of yours over the last year? By Britt Meow. There's a lot of great exhibitions that have gone on over the last year across the city. And at the Autry, we're really big proponents of partnership. And so I know that there's some great exhibitions that were going on before COVID-19. And a lot of them come to mind, but I'm also kind of frazzled. So stay tuned, and I might even make a list of those for you later. Print me out. Thanks. I guess I kind of also wanted to share with you all, like, what is the process in curating an exhibition? Oh, canceled. I almost canceled. Okay. Oh, I almost ended the whole thing. That was close. Okay. So let me give you guys like the 7 steps of curating an exhibition, because I feel like a lot of people don't know what goes into them. So traditionally, if you're a history curator, and Josh can definitely echo this, as well as Carolyn as well, that traditionally when you're thinking about an exhibition, there's 7 steps. So for me in particular, I work on, I always start off with premise. Every exhibition has to have a premise that will drive the thesis of the entire show. So if there's no premise or thesis, an idea that can be strung through the whole exhibition, it pretty much can let you know that the show still needs more teasing out. So I always start at the ground with the ideation and the premise to build on top of the exhibition. After we have a strong premise and idea, we therefore move into scholarly presentation or scholarly research to substantiate the thesis. So I'll give you an example. Most recently, formerly at my last institution, I did an exhibition about gospel music in Los Angeles. And the thesis was that Los Angeles was an epicenter and a hub for gospel music. And to many people's lack of understanding about that, it was in fact true. Aretha Franklin in particular performed her she performed her Amazing Grace album in Watts, California, and in that, it became the highest selling gospel record of all time. And seeing that there was this was all done because of Los Angeles and California and her migration to the state, I knew that this therefore clarified a longer tradition of gospel music, and therefore I was able to build off of that. And I would definitely encourage checking out the Amazing Grace Aretha Franklin documentary. And out of that, we were able to substantiate the show and build on the larger, greater migration of African Americans to Los Angeles over the course of a century, from Biddy Mason all the way to Aretha Franklin. And we were able to substantiate that. And that was an example of how thesis is everything when you're doing and curating a history show. After you have the thesis and after you have scholarly research to substantiate it, you want to find the objects. And so for that particular show, we and the team went into churches and we spoke to choirs and we sourced from the community all of these objects to substantiate the topic in the show. And therefore, we were able to find choir robes and so many things like that. And this kind of speaks to the process overall. And after you find the objects, and if you don't already have a robust collection like we do at the Autry, you want to write and synthesize the research so that it's palatable to your audience, so that they know what the subject matter is. And so you tediously work through and matriculate through the content to therefore see what's inside of it and what you want to really emphasize for your audience. After you write, you want to work with your exhibition designer and build out the display of the show, which can take several years to do. And it is a process that is probably one of my favorite parts because of how immersive and collaborative it is. And then after that, you want to get into the installation and then therefore open the show. And all of this can take, like I said, upwards of 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years to present a show. So that's how you curate a history show. Let me take some questions. I love the Autry. Thank you, Janian Jones. We love you too. What future projects and exhibitions are you looking forward to? Oh, so many. We at the Autry on the curatorial side are, again, dress codes is coming up. We have a great show on the way by Josh, who is working diligently about what is a Western, and that show is going to be phenomenal as it helps us to reimagine and rethink what it means, what is a Western, and like how we view Westerns as a whole. There's a lot of great stuff down the pipeline, and I want to talk about the ones that are definitely confirmed. So those are the two that I'm really excited about, amongst so many others, done by Karima, another curator at the Autry. Thank you, Martine Z. Nicole. Any questions you guys want to drop? Feel free. We'll wave at people. Let me do some shout outs because there's some more people. PJ, thank you for joining, man. Hey, Kel. Hey, hey, Crystal. Hey, Curator Love, thank you for joining. Hey, Kate. Hey, Brittany Al. Hey, Ancient Future 2012. Can you go live with some of the native voices, artistic directors and actors? Yes, Rayanne222_ we actually plan on. That's the point of office hours. We want to, again, remove the veil and show you all exactly what we are doing and in the throes of every single day. So expect to hear from other staff members at the Autry, particularly the Native Voices, artistic directors and actors, about what their process is when they are curating those programs and events. So stay tuned. Thanks for that question. Is that something you can bring to the Autry at some point? No justice, no peace. Excellent show. Let me see if there are more questions. So Andrea. Oh, I wish we could mate. Do you have any collaborate with other curators? Do you ever collaborate with other curators from other institutions, Sacred Village Arts? Yes, absolutely. It's all about collaboration and process. And the Autry's exhibitions often involve consultants and those who are experts in the field. And often we work with other curators across the board. So it just depends on the exhibition and what the needs are. Thank you, Sacred Village Arts. Mate Peterson says, is there any chance you can bring the No Justice, No Peace exhibition to the Autry? I wish we could, but it's not a traveling exhibition, sadly. But it was a great show. Thank you, mate. Hey, Diana. Good to see you. Andrea says, if you weren't a curator, what would you want to do as a career? Oh, that's a cool question. Well, before I was a curator, I was actually a professor, and I was teaching African American studies at Cal State Dominguez Hills in the South Bay. And I really would love to one day, of course, teach again. And I often have the occasion to lecture at UCLA and USC to talk about how to bring certain histories into the museum. And I think if I wasn't curating full time, it would definitely be teaching to some degree. So thank you for that question, Andrea. That's a good one. Grace Hudson Museum says, let's see what this one. Have you had a chance yet to dig into the Autry collections? What inspired you to be a curator of the Autry? Grace Hudson Museum, that's a good question. So I have had the chance to dig into the Autry collections. I'm actually visited the Resource Center that is soon to reopen. And I was floored at the thousands and thousands and thousands of objects that are available to us as curators to bring rich histories to light. And I was particularly excited to see just the vastness of our saddle collection and its connectivity to larger histories about what is a cowboy and how we view that. And so I definitely plan on spending more quality time there. We have a robust Lummis record collection that we're really excited about and often get a lot of inquiries about, but there's so much to explore. I know I've only gotten to the tip of the iceberg, so stay tuned and you'll probably see more of my findings either on social media or blog posts and the like. Actually, I mean, what inspired you to be the curator at the Autry? What inspired me to be a curator of the Autry is just, again, the robustness of our collection, just the collaborative spirit that's among the staff at the Autry, just the intellectual curiosity of our team. Moreover, just the opportunity to bring in new community voices and have them be on display alongside our collections at the Autry was something that I just couldn't pass up. And I really feel that joining the Autry is an organic next step in my career as a public historian. So thank you, Grace Hudson Museum. This is from PJ. Oh, this is a good question. So how does the Autry think about the nuance of the idea of the West and its role in Indigenous violence and California history of exclusions? Oh, that's a really great question, PJ, and very necessary. The Autry is always actively thinking about that in a curatorial way. We recognize that the histories of California is rife with plunder and exclusion and violence, and we as a curatorial team don't seek to shy away from the very real truth and history that undergirds that. We actually just recently hired a very strong and esteemed and notable curator by the name of Joe Horsecapture, who has been curating for over 15 years, and his work as a curator, particularly surrounding the experiences of those who happen to be Indigenous in the West will be on display very soon, both digitally and the like. And he is someone who does not shy away from the truths about California history and the nuances that exist. So that's a really good question, PJ, and stay tuned for more from not only him, but the rest of the curatorial team and our programming. Oh, this is a good one from S. Michelle. What are my favorite quarantine snacks? Any Western snacks? Well, personally, this is a good question. I really have been enjoying Oreos. I like Oreos a lot. I don't know how Western Oreo snacks are, but I can't have too many because I don't want to lose my entire figure. So, but curatorially, I definitely tend to select Oreos and any Western snacks. Look out for a blog post per chance on that because California and our Western snack history is actually pretty robust too. Thanks, S. Mitchell. Do you ever recommend listening to certain music while walking around exhibitions? I'm a real big proponent. That's Cora Kimmy. I'm a real big proponent of being present in the galleries. I think that when you're in museums, you are inside of them because you are seeking to either experience something new or learn something that you hadn't. And I think being as present as possible in the exhibitions are great. And so if the exhibition doesn't have music, I wouldn't necessarily bring music inside of it. Particularly don't play it out loud because that might disrupt others. But good question, Cora Kimmy. Dun, 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 dun. Can you ask your co-worker to do, Amy Scott, to do a Q&A? Please tell her Cindy Aragon says hi. Well, I will, Cindy 2021. Look out, perhaps Amy will jump on Office Hours really soon too. That's a good suggestion. About women cowgirls, are cowgirls a thing? Hasef says, can we get exhibition about women cowgirls, are cowgirls a thing? Absolutely. There is a really, again, robust history of cowgirls, not only in the West, but across the country. And so look out for exhibitions to definitely delve into cowgirl history and particularly their fashions with future exhibitions like dress codes. Well, let me take some questions down in the box so you guys can see them. Oh, okay. What is your, okay, this is a good one. Chris Gonzalez says, what is your favorite Netflix binge right now? So I just got out of, Chris, this is a good one. What is your favorite? I just got done finishing Tiger King. And I am still processing just the absurdity, the absurdity, that's the best word I can give it, the absurdity of Tiger King and all of its themes. I still am very confused about several of the players in that documentary. And I think so many of you all are. And I really am a big advocate for, animals of all kinds. And I hope that within all of this, more tigers are, and their habitats are preserved, because that was one really trippy documentary. And if you haven't seen Tiger King, or if you have seen Tiger King, feel free to in the comments share what you liked about it too. But it was weird, and I'm still kind of disturbed. But that's what I got done, and I'm still not sure if I enjoyed all of it entirely. Let me take some more. Carol Baskin. So Chris, also, I want to, how do you go about taking art when you see it? Are you seeing? Kale says, what new projects are you most excited about? I'm really excited about new exhibitions that I am involved with that are upcoming, working with great people like Richard Foss on some really great projects in the near future. So stay tuned for that. And I'm also really interested in the African-American experience that's tied to cowboy lifestyle. I'm especially interested in bridging connections from like Nat Love all the way to Little Nas X for Old Town Road, and how those larger ties have always been historically undergirded within cowboy life. And so stay tuned. Thank you for that question, Kale. Given the timeline, what will this be a weekly live? Oh, okay, this is a good question. So Maba says, will this be a weekly live? Well, we're definitely planning on doing this more frequently. Please stay close to our um, e-blast to hear when our next office hours happens, not only for myself, but so many other great people and staff at our team on our team. Thanks you, Maba. What's up, fam? Hey, just Amy Scott is coming up on office hours. Oh, okay, that's cool. PJ says, I seen your music bops on Twitter, so I want to know, how does your music ever inform your thinking, research, or curatorial practice? That's a really good question, PJ. Music is a really great historical tool to wield when you're a curator, because within music you can actually hear and the retention of particular cultural norms. And I stay very close to music to understand what the politics of the day might be, both through lyrics as well as the incorporation of instrumentation. And I usually use music as a gauge to understand the also where popular culture was at the time. And it's something that I think curators can use often to create immersive experiences when they're curating exhibitions at any institution that they serve at. That's a good question. And may I encourage you all to follow the Autry for more live and online content as well. Let's see where the questions are. Thank you, Andrea, for that reminder. Kate says, oh my gosh, if you guys can see how many questions I have, I'm just really pleasantly overwhelmed. Oh, okay. So Kate says, what is one of your favorite objects that you featured in one of your exhibitions? For me, thus far, one of my favorite objects would probably be a tie between No Justice, No Peace, LA 1992 at my last institution, where we brought in a actual police car into the exhibition that was held in the back of the gallery, a 5,000 square foot gallery. And I love the ways in which that particular object, this archival object from the 1992 uprisings, really was able to incite particular emotions by the public. And I thought that those reactions were genuine and authentic and really brought history to life for those who saw that exhibition. The other one that's a favorite of mine was in the gospel exhibition that I curated at the last institution, entitled How Sweet the Sound, Gospel Music in Los Angeles, where we were able to source Dr. Martin Luther King's pulpit from Friendship Baptist Church in Pasadena, California, that we had on display for the first time in a museum space. And I thought that was able to incite genuine and amazing emotions, particularly from youth, about how the civil rights movement in particular actually also existed in California and in Los Angeles in particular. And it really would bring home how the fight for social justice is as present day as we have access to. So that's a really good one. Thank you, Kate. Okay, we got more. Whoa. What is the most unusual donation you've ever got? Oh, Carolyn, thank you. What is the most unusual donation, Curie, you've ever got? I think it is. I would say people throughout my career, I think someone has attempted to try to give food, like physical food, or like seeing how food could be given to be a part of the archive. I thought that was really abnormal because naturally many know that food in the gallery, as well as being held in our collections, would definitely expire and also contaminate other objects. So that's a no-no. But in that, I think the unusual donation query would definitely be food. And I saw the enthusiasm of the query, but it definitely is something we shouldn't do. So thank you for that, Carolyn. Can you recommend a book for sheltering in place? Oh yeah, there's a plenty of good books. I have a few that I'm reading right now, in particular, but I tend to really enjoy um, African American sci-fi or Afrofuturism. And so there's a really great book called The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin that I'm really delving into. I'm excited to revisit The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. Because in fact, her work actually talks a lot about dystopian presence and futures. So I definitely would encourage that. And a lot of really great books. But those are just two of my favorites right now that I'm really delving into outside of larger work. Can you recommend? Let's see with some more questions. When you walk into, oh, okay, Chris, this is a good one. When you walk into an exhibition in a museum, what are things you look for? Oh man, whenever I walk into an exhibition, Chris, the first thing I look for is placement of objects and how they are meant to stand out. I think certain exhibitions, particularly at the Autry, really do that well. Excuse me. And I love larger pieces because those are statement pieces. And I tend to gravitate to those because I would love to understand why those were a curatorial choice and why they might serve the larger room in contextualizing whatever theme, thesis, or history that is being displayed. That's a good question, Chris. Oh, oh, okay, PJ, thank you for this question. When did you figure out the iconic tortoiseshell look? Well, these are compliments of Warby Parker and my optician, but I really favor this look in particular, and I'm glad you also admire it as well, PJ. My friends are in here, so you guys are making me laugh so much. And thank you for joining. Are you seeing my questions? That was a question. So introduce Christina. How do you go about taking in the art when you see it for the first time? For me, whenever I'm seeing new art or excited about new art, I really tend to go by myself. And I like to do so because new art always does one thing, and that's inspire. And I want to take in every brushstroke, every aspect of the materials that are being included so that I can, again, see the intention that the artist was incorporating and also understand more fully what they're trying to say or make come across. After that, after viewing the art, I will read the label or the caption that supports the piece, and then it'll give me more insight about the piece and the artist and their larger trajectory more fully. So thank you for that question, Christina. I appreciate you being in here too. All right, you guys are really hung in. This is really cool with me. Let's see if we got some more Q&A. Oh, thank you. So, as Michelle, how do you prioritize the community voice when developing projects? That's a really great question, S. Michelle. I actually prioritize the community voice at the highest level, even around the area of ideation and premise, because as someone who has had the privilege of curating for communities, being from communities, it's always necessary to have their buy-in and stake if they can be involved in any process when curating an exhibition. I think that having a community voice actually adds a layer of authenticity when curating. And I think that the larger museum field is understanding that having the community's buy-in as early as possible will not only allow the success of the exhibition and the public programming, but also give more nuance and more respect and attention to detail toward the exhibition and project. because you've decided to bring that community approach. So that's mine, and I'm so grateful to have that a part of my individual curatorial practice, and so does the Autry. All right, what is your favorite Western film? Actually, so this is a good question. We were in a meeting today, and I was excited to hear about some of the things that my colleague Josh is working on, and he brought up the Mandalorian, and he's always teasing out the concept of like what is a Western, and then immediately when he said Mandalorian, it made me think about how really, if we look at Star Wars as a body of film, you can actually make a case that Star Wars is also a Western. Just given several of the nuances and the themes that are prevalent, particularly through Luke Skywalker and the like, especially geographically. Whenever you would see them in the desert or in certain settings, you get the same emphasis that we all know about Western films. So I argue, and I plan to tease out much more fully, that with Josh's help, that Star Wars actually might be a Western. Just as much as Django is a Western by Quentin Tarantino and Jimmy Fox. I see that as a Western. What else is another good one? There's too many to count. But this is a good segue because the team at the Autry is revisiting and reimagining what is a Western, and we plan on rolling out certain programming and film offerings so that you guys can engage in that conversation with us too. So thank you, Cora Kimmy. Yes, Star Wars is a Western. You agree. Thank you. All right, let's see. We've got some new questions. Oh, okay. PJ says, what are the challenges of being a public historian during this time? I can't see the rest of the question, PJ. Actually, I don't really, just the ways in which I engage the profession. I don't work from a scarcity model, but I work from one of abundance, and I don't see any barriers actually or challenges. I actually see the opportunity. I'm actually very interested in looking at COVID-19 and larger discussions of pandemics and how museums and the collections are going to be collecting around pandemics, both contemporarily and in the future. And I think we have a lot of robust examples that we can be collecting both digitally and physically. And I'm curious, when all this is said and done, how institutions will be collecting contemporarily about the history that we're all in the middle of. And so I definitely encourage any public historians who are in this office hours to think about that, and thinking about journaling and writing down your thoughts and talking to your family and recording oral histories, because this moment that we're in is in fact, and saving your masks, PJ, thank you, saving those masks, because in fact, we are in the middle of not only a quarantine, but we're in the middle of history. And a real public historian doesn't see our moment as a challenge, but more so as an opportunity. So that's how I'm thinking about it. So I'm saving my mask too, as well. All right, let's do some shout outs. So, hey, Ro, I appreciate you joining. Cora Kimmy, thank you. Grow Museum Day, appreciate you joining. Introduce Christina, thank you for coming in. Chris DeZalo, hey man. Kale, appreciate you, you know this. Josh is a Western, course. Can you recommend a book? Okay, we got that one. All right, let's see. Hey, Keisha. Okay, let me take a question. Okay, this is a good one. Just call me KB. This question is, how do you approach research and writing, the writing process when you work on an exhibition? That's a good question. Just call me KB. For me, I always look to see what has been written on a particular topic, and then from there, how has new scholarship added onto previous scholarship, and then that allows me to fill in the gap about how to write about it. And also, thirdly, I'll bring in a community voice or a community lens to fill in the gaps that history and historians may have overlooked or omitted about that certain topic. So that's how I view it, and ultimately how I research and write for exhibitions. Mm-hmm. Ah. Hey, Kenny Keys, thank you for joining. Hi, Jenny D. I appreciate you joining. During this time of pandemic, what is the museum doing in managing the collections? Oh, that's a really great one, Michelle's World. We're extremely vigilant. Naturally, we have custodians who are constantly looking over who are looking over all of our objects, both at our resource center as well as Griffith Park. And we are constantly holding collections meetings about new donations that are coming through. And so we are on the front lines about managing and protecting and conserving all of our objects in our collections. It's a good one. Marco, hello from East Hollywood. Shout out to East Hollywood. Thank you for joining. All right. Guys, we have so many questions in here. Let's see. What are these? So this is a good one. What and who inspires me most? I'd like to say who inspires me most is probably my grandmother. I was raised by my grandmother, and she actually lives even closer to me now. And her and I were recently talking about her larger journey from coming from Savannah, Georgia, as a little Black girl, and her larger migration to California through the 1970s. And her story corroborates with the larger trends of the Great Migration. And so she's actually agreed to allow me to conduct oral histories about her larger trajectory. And I'm excited that she is in wanting to do that. And also how just she serves as a constant inspiration for me. And also my work as a historian. Thank you for that one. Oh, yeah. So Roma Avenue says, what is your most favorite exhibit at the Autry? At the Autry? It's probably the ones that are in view right now. I really am very fond of the Fonseca show that we just did. I really am appreciative of many of the artists that are in our master's exhibition, and that were on view at the gala. I'm really excited about I'm really excited about the shows that are coming up, and the shows that I'm working on with the team. And so yeah, those are just a few of my favorite. So Ancient Futures 2012 says, what is the future of museums since everything is going digital? That's a really good question. I think the future of museums is bright. I think many museums, again, are just reimagining what we can do to create access, for our publics to our collections. And I think bringing them to smartphones and in other larger digital spaces will really not only test museums' capacities to engage our audiences, but really allow museums as a whole to rise to the occasion, so that the future of museums is more democratic and is accessible to all. And I'm really excited, even despite what seems like a very bleak present. And if you're a museum professional, please know that we are all in solidarity with you as well. What do you feel? So this is Adali. What do you feel you tend to gravitate to the most when they visit the Autry? Any feedback that has surprised you? Well, I recently just started at the Autry, so I have been able to watch school-aged tours, engage various things, and I think from not only watching most recently how school-age students are taking in the content that the Autry provides, but also largely in my career, I think if you can create immersive experiences within exhibitions, you tend to not only gravitate to the content, but they also tend to take hold and ownership of the content, and therefore they share it with their loved ones when they go back to their respective homes. And I think as long as museums still are invested in creating immersive experiences for youth, will always continue to come back over and over again. You bet your bottom dollar. Let me see. We have 8 minutes left, so I'm going to take a few of these questions, and then we're going to head out. And Albin. So Albin says, Albin 500, hey Albin, appreciate you, man. How do you define a successful exhibition as opposed to an unsuccessful exhibition? Well, I mean, naturally, that is always up for discussion depending on what side that individual sits on. I think for the viewer in particular, a successful exhibition is one that they can take ownership of, again, of the content and of what's on view. And then for an institution, a successful exhibition as opposed to an unsuccessful exhibition is one that meets all of the data points. Engagement and audiences who've come, also audiences that haven't come, and then also meeting the attendance numbers that really move the needle on a fiduciary side. And all of that mixed with a sensitivity to content, immersive experiences within exhibition spaces always make for a successful exhibition. Thank you, Albin, for that one. Do you think that there will be a residency? Oh, I hope so. This is a good one. Okay, so Girl Museum Day says, how can art organizations and museums support museums right now? That's a good one. I think art organizations and communities can support museums right now by donating. I think if it's not your time and your resources, it's definitely your objects. I think with everyone being home right now in the midst of their quarantine, and many are involved in spring cleaning, you might come across rare objects, and that things that certain museums that may not have too much utility to you, but you understand the historical relevance and rarity. And I would consider calling up your local museum and engaging with conversations with their collections department and seeing in their curatorial department to see what you can possibly donate to make their collections more robust and keep those museums alive. So I think that's a very practical answer. And I really appreciate that question, Girl Museum Day. All right, let me see. Got 6 more minutes, everyone. So I know everyone has to go back to work. So speak more. Okay, so it's Lynn's B. How is Autry giving back in this time of need? The Autry is very invested in giving back. One thing that I'm really excited to share is that the Autry had several essential items that we were able to donate to local medical professionals to assist in larger upticks in what's going on with COVID-19. So I'm really proud of the Archie and our involvement in that regard. And that's just one of many ways we're giving back in this current time of need. not only to what's going on, but to our communities that surround us and that we engage daily. All right. I got some more questions. So Roma Avenue says, we love the Autry. We love you too. My parents, boomers, love the Wild Wild West exhibits. Still. Oh, thank you. Tell them the Autry says hello. And we can't wait to see you all again. Natalie Rocha says, thumbs up. I appreciate you, Natalie. Mexico, I appreciate the plants. Oh, you see them? Also a hobby of mine, as I'm a really big plant person. I don't know if you can see I don't want to pull this one guy out, but one of my hobbies is I love plants. And so this is one of my countless ones in my house. And you can clearly see I'm surrounded. So that's just a small fact. That's not important though. And I'm spending a lot of quality time with them. So they look really good because all the water I'm giving them these days. I'm working from home. R2, you wished Western included more shows and scholarship. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate you all. Good luck with your future plans. Thank you, Roma Avenues. Green thumb means you're creative. I know. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Oh, that's why. Yes, Plant Dad. Okay, let me see. I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to get out of your way because we appreciate your time and we want to respect it. What is the balance between vision? Oh, that's a good one. Oh, okay. This is a good one to leave off on. Thank you, Chris. Just in advance. Okay, so any advice for young people out there who are interested in becoming curators themselves? Yes, this is one thing that I am so excited to talk about. If you know anyone who seeks to one day become a curator, please let them know that it is possible. The museum field is an open field for every person across race, color, creed, and orientation. And that the field only becomes better when we have many voices at the table to curate exhibitions about history and about art. And I'm excited to see that as the field widens and broadens, that there are more opportunities for curators, especially those curators of color, to bring new voices to the conversation. Because when museums have curatorial voices from various places, their exhibitions and programming becomes even more successful. And I think that the opportunities that are in front of certain students and for certain youth are wide. And so I would say mentorship is important, finding curators at various institutions that you would one day like to see yourself at if you're a young person. Also visiting as many exhibitions and gallery shows as possible to get an understanding of how shows are built and displayed. And then coming to the Autry to see what we curatorially offer, so you can become more involved in taking ownership of what we do as an institution alongside so many other great ones. And so that's my advice, and quick advice. If you know me, I'm a really big advocate for curatorial mentorship, and I've been privileged to have a lot of great mentorship in that regard, and I always am seeking opportunities to do that, particularly for communities of color. So I only have 15 seconds left. I want to say thank you all for joining me for the Autry's office hours, and I hope you all stay tuned for future ones, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Bye. Thanks for joining me.